Even during the most repressive decade of the Islamic Republic, the first decade after the revolution in '79, house parties were going on.
Sure.
People were drinking. I grew up in a very westernized culture. And this wasn't just the privileged northern Tehranis. We lived all over the city, the working classes, the middle classes, the upper classes. This has always been the case. The fact is actually that Iranian culture has this very kind of subversive side, which is that you really experience total pleasure and freedom in the comfort of your home. And it has oftentimes very little to do with the overt oppressive measures that the government might place publicly. But it is in fact true that there is this explosion of younger people who are more attuned into the world beyond Iran's cultural restrictions and the red lines that the government has set for them. But nevertheless, I think we underestimate the degree to which the Islamic Republic has successfully managed to even dominate those relatively free domains. In fact, if you speak to many representatives from the Ministry of Culture and Guidance that is responsible for not only censoring movies, the flow of news, but also censoring the internet and from time to time going and scooping up satellite dishes and what have you. Many of them are very savvy. They know exactly what their population is consuming and how much of it they should consume and how much of it might go beyond what would be allowable. But the thing that they're most sensitive to are expressions of political chiefly political dissent and oppositional views. And in this regard, the Islamic Republic actually is probably one of the most advanced repressive governments in the world, because it precisely knows how to manipulate the illusion of freedom that young people might have. And to have them really get excited about simple pleasures like Paris Hilton and very kind of, the mediocrity of Western culture. They're totally fine with that. But the minute you get sophisticated and you might want to have a public discussion about the relationship between a civil society and representative institutions, then that is a step too far. And we see this time and again in works of creative art that are created by Iranian artists who are very refined, very sophisticated, who are continuously held back, imprisoned, harassed, driven out of the country. In fact, one of the most effective tools of repression has been the policy of the Islamic Republic to drive out many of the dissenters. I mean, my generation, my parents and my generation are part of one of the largest brain drains in the history of the modern Middle East. Los Angeles is a big center, obviously. Toronto, where my family lives, over the last 20 years or so, has seen untold populations of very savvy middle-class Iranians leaving the country and really becoming the pride of Canada instead. I mean, the damage that has done to the culture and civil life inside Iran is really also the really downside of this. It's fine, the governments would be totally fine if young people just consume that kind of the cheapened version of Western culture. They actually have very little trouble with that. But the core problem for them remains expressions of political dissent, and they, I would venture to say, are among the most sophisticated repressive governments in the world.